Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 171 and this one's called Defeat. And yeah, like last week's chapter, another very good chapter this week. Eventful stuff happens, has the sort of benefit of having sort of a big surprise but in a very good way. And it's building us up to a kind of big crescendo here where it feels like we're getting very, very close to the end with what's happening here. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like needless extending out of things. It's just, we knew this was the final arc. We're getting towards that point and we're referencing a lot of the stuff that we want to see again. So, you know, it's pretty positive from me. I know like a bunch of chapters ago, maybe there was a bit of like, what are they doing? Like they're really taking their time. But more recently, it's felt like they've been getting towards the right thing. It's just all about, I suppose, how they do the specifics of the ending and to make it satisfying. And, you know, there's the hope that they don't just hyper rush everything here and it feel really unsatisfying. Right now, it feels that we're going at a nice pace that fits the final arc, but we'll see how we go as we get that bit closer to the end. So let's go through this page by page. So we start where we finished off the last chapter with Peter Ratri seemingly having just utterly lost. Like, does he have any options whatsoever? And that's what he's running through the halls, like asking himself, me lose to food? No, it's a lie. I won't accept this. I'm not done yet. There has to be a way. So he initially thinks, oh, what about the 2,000 soldiers I have on the outside? So he calls up the demons on the outside, like, what about backup? And he's informed, like, no, that's not possible. The outer bridge has been destroyed and no one can go through. You know, we're already, you know, doing something else. And Peter actually says, like, stop whining, eat a bird or a bat and fly over here. And they're like, what? Because obviously we know that the normal kind of demons do have that ability of, like, they sort of become what they eat to a degree. So he's probably oversimplifying it there, that if they just ate like one bird they could fly. But, you know, that's how desperate he is, just hoping that, like, oh, I know how demons work, they'll make this happen. But he just calls them idiots and he goes down one corridor. We see more of the moms kind of out in the corridor aiming guns at him, and he is just desperately trying to get away to anywhere where there's no one around. He notes to himself, if I trigger their heart chips all at once, no, that's impossible unless the system is up again. And he's like, oh, maybe I can get to the kids who are in the storage room. And he's like, no, that also requires the system. So then he gets a call and he's informed that this is the Imperial capital and ... And his response is, what? And we then cut to the Imperial capital. So this is like the really bad part of the story right now of, like, oh yeah, Sanju and Mujika have been captured. They're about to be executed. And this is where we cut back to this. Like, this is where it seems to have gone completely wrong. There's no hope for them being saved because Emma and everyone else are still dealing with what's going on in Gracefield Farm. So we have this here at the big announcement. We will now behead the traitors, Sanju and Mujika. It's going completely terribly. The kids are obviously like, no, they're going to be killed. And this is where Mujika's like, sorry, Emma, Ray, everyone. But suddenly someone appears. And everyone turns around, is shocked. There's murmurs. There's some people begin to shout. Even the guy who's about to perform the execution is like, huh? And then we cut, and it's obviously a demon in some pretty fancy clothes. Everyone is like, what? And then you see on his shoulder is the kind of one-eyed little kind of monkey type thing, and you immediately know who this is. And as we cut to the next page, big panel here of Luvis entering the story once again. So everyone called this, that Luvis was still alive. There was a reason why, even after his supposed death back in like the second arc of the show, or like third one, the Goldie Pond arc, there's a reason why his body wasn't like left there. Like they specifically noted his body is missing. And then recently with the Queen, we found out that they basically said some people in the royal family from good bloodlines have that ability to have that second core. Now, obviously, I assume that is going to be the explanation for how Luva survived, revealing that he also had a second core. So his first one was destroyed by everyone back then, but he got away and he's alive now, thanks to that secondary core. So that's probably how it all will be explained. But he walks in here and they're all like, what are you doing here? And of course, this is where you begin to connect everything of like, oh yeah, the way this works out is that like this is Sanju's brother here, because this was the Queen's brother as well, and they're all related. And they're all like, Grand Duke Luvis, you're here. And so he just walks up onto the platform, and they're like, oh, I thought he was missing. You're alive, Your Highness. And then that's where we get the flashback to the idea of like, yeah, he was meant to be dead. They show him getting shot in the eye. And he says, you're alive, Your Highness, and his response is unintentionally yes. So I'm guessing the thought here is that he didn't know that he had that second core until he was hit and the first one was destroyed. So everyone freaking out. And he's like, what's the meaning of this? You've all gained a lot of power while I was gone, even though you're merely dogs of the 5 regent houses. Well, I'm guessing you were cajoled by the Ratri boy. Deplorable indeed. He looks down at his brother and is like, it's been a while, Sanju. Which at this point I thought he just killed him here, but he actually just like cut Sanju to get some of his blood, and then shouts out to all the citizens, take a look. This is the evil blood. This is what you feared and hated, the sinister blood. He pours it into a cup and just drinks it in front of everyone. And they're all like, what? You can't drink the tainted blood? That's not something you're meant to do. And he just says, there's no need to fear. The evil blood isn't some infectious poison. That was just a falsehood created by my sister, Legra Valima. And so this is the truth coming out here. This is what Luvis is doing in this situation. He is revealing the truth. You don't know what his motivations necessarily are, but at the same time, he was in a position he just didn't really care. He chose to not really be involved necessarily with the royal family, but in a different way from Sanju. He was fine for the most part with what they did, disagreed with some of it, but here's him with all of them gone, choosing to do things his way. So he says, rather, the evil blood is a miraculous blood to us. If you drink just a sip, you won't degenerate, even if you don't eat humans. But 700 years ago, the Queen and the aristocrats misinformed everyone that the blood was toxic, framed those with this blood as traitors, and slaughtered them. For all their greed and reign, the power of the evil-blooded was inconvenient to rule the citizens with, an iron fist using the farms. So, it's just getting across. That is the entire point of the farm system, why all of this happened. There was a solution to the problem of demons keeping their intelligence and their food, but the royals at the time chose to lie about it and ignore it so they could keep power, absolute power, for themselves. That's what we've known for a while now. And the demon citizenship, I suppose, is finding this out at this point. I speak the truth. We, the royal family and the 5 regent houses, devoured the evil-blooded long ago and obtained bodies that don't degenerate, while the citizens were starving. All of it was unnecessary. Ever since the promise 700 years ago, the continued lack of human meat and the degenerations and deaths caused by it, all the suffering and fear were avoidable. So he's really doubling down here of this truth, completely destroying all the citizens' trust in their leadership here. Once the evil-blooded shared their blood in order to save the citizens, but they were killed for it, and now, for the same reasons, they're about to be killed by the greedy government. Truly ludicrous. You want to kill the evil-blooded? These two aren't traitors. Rather, they are heroes who tried to save you, the citizens. And Sanju is like, brother, why? And we get his thought process about this. I mean, he's always said the promise and the farms were annoying evils, but he had zero interest in politics and never cared about justice or doing something about the suffering of the citizens. All he did was pursue his pleasures. And Luvis answers, like knowing obviously what Sanju is thinking, I'm sure this isn't like me. But the ones I dumped all of the responsibility on have left this world, and I can't look the other way if we're just following the orders of humans. This reign has reached its limit. Other than that, I guess it's just a whim. But notably, as he says, I guess it's just a whim, he thinks back to like Emma and everyone else who he faced at Goldie Pond, who defeated him, showing that like they had an impact on him, I suppose. Like, we don't know the exact scope of it, but that's sort of informing where this different approach is coming from. The true traitors were the Queen and the houses, and the current government vassals, the current government vassal armies of the 5 regent houses and the farms. The kids are all excited by this. They're like, Your Highness. And he says, I, Grand Duke Luvis, order for the execution to be cancelled and the arrest of the traitors, the leaders of the current government. And we cut back to Peter Ratri. This is what he heard over the phone just before we cut to the arrival of Luvis. And he's like, no, even the Imperial capital fell to enemy hands. There's nothing left I can do. They've already made a promise too. I've lost. I've been defeated. And he's just having this picture in his head of all of the kids escaping into the human world, and basically the idea of his life, his structure crumbling around him. It is interesting in that, like, are we meant to take that as just being representative of like what he sees as like being symbolic of what's happening, or is that actually what the like portal or whatever to the human world is actually going to look like? Not really sure about that. It's probably just meant to be more symbolic, if anything. And he's like, it's over. But then Emma appears, pointing the gun at him, saying, don't move. And this gives Peter Ratri an idea. No, not yet. They've made a new promise with the One, but they haven't implemented it yet. And they went back and highlighted the idea that this is one thing he found out from some of the other kids he like interrogated before, back when he sort of tortured some of them. He knows that Emma was the one who made the promise, but it hasn't been like activated yet. And that's what he says. The one who made the promise was 63194, Emma, and he knows that that's who's in front of him right now. So his last ditch plan here is, got it, I lose. He says that to Emma, and he says to himself, yeah, I've lost. There's no future for me. He goes up and says, please don't shoot me, but to himself, this is what he's thinking. But as long as I kill her, Emma, the promise is void. Their future will be destroyed too. And again, it's this sort of symbolic sort of vision of this like almost like statue of Emma shattered, or like stone statue of Emma shattered, and the One just sort of staring mysteriously forward. That, yes, finally we're mentioning the promise again, and it feels like it's actually something that could happen at some point soon. That this is what everyone wants to know about. What is the deal here? Because, of course, they're teasing the idea that, oh, will Peter Ratri kill Emma? But everyone is already thinking about the idea that, like, the sacrifice, that the reward she has to give to the One, or whatever way it was worded, the thing that she has to, like, give away to make the next promise happen, is probably going to be something sacrificial on her part, about herself. So how much do you weigh this potential attempt for Peter Ratri to kill her versus the idea that she's going to have to make a sacrifice anyway? Potentially, of course, because we don't know the One. He could be like mysterious in this and have some sort of really different approach in terms of what he wanted. But I like this of there is no extra solution for Peter Ratri. This is it. The only thing he can do at this point is accept that he's done. He can't come back from this, but he can't stop his opponent who defeated him from gaining exactly what they want. And if the promise is voided, they won't get exactly what they want. They'll still be stuck in, to some degree, the world in the way that it is. And I don't know if this is meant to be a tease that the promise like will actually end up not happening and the world will have to stay as is. But because so much change has already happened, there is going to be some value in having the human world, like half of the human world and half the demon world, and they can actually work together going forward, rather than needing to revert it back to the way things were, because, you know, won't that create problems? And it's all really about like how well thought through is the new promise about addressing what happened in the past and how they can fix that, and how fixing things can be better, or whatever. It's difficult to think about because there's a few twists and turns they can still have along the way to get different results. But like I said, I like what they're doing here of like, Peter Ratri isn't really a threat anymore. I'd be shocked if he actually manages to hurt Emma or really get the advantage over her. I think this truly is this last-ditch attempt. The fact that he's doing something so desperate that he's lost, he can't gain anything from this except do something bad to someone else. That's it. That's the only thing left for him to do. I don't think we're necessarily going to like kill Peter Ratri in the next chapter, but I think we probably will be building up to the death of Peter Ratri and really addressing the whole idea of the Ratri clan betrayed humanity in terms of keeping this thing going for this long. Of course, we're still sort of waiting for stuff with James Ratri and so on. That still feels like something where okay, they sort of mentioned that they killed him, but was it confirmed? And especially with certain characters returning in this chapter, how much value really is there in that, and so on. It still feels like we have to return to some of the Ratri clan stuff that was talked about in the earlier arcs and so on, and link it back to where we are now in terms of it was talked about the different paths to the human world, and how does one of the Ratri clan know about that from the past, and so on. So I'm really wondering the scope to which they'll kind of address all of that. But I really enjoyed this chapter. Really liked the progression that we got over this one and the next one. And I hope they can keep this up. I hope they can keep it so that something notable is happening in each chapter, progressing the story forward without it really feeling like we're going too fast. This actually feels like a pretty solid, conclusion we're building up to here. In that okay, Isabella, but I liked the way they did Isabella's character arc, even though it was fairly quick. I like what they've done here with the reintroduction of Luvis, in that there's still more to address with him about what does he hope to do going forward. We know that he was one of these characters who valued hunting humans, and that was something that he really cared about, and he enjoyed the sort of thrill of the hunt, the pleasure of having someone come close to killing him. He's not really going to get that in the world that they have right now, whereas I suppose if that's still what's driving him, he sees it as if the humans are allowed to get stronger again, there's hope for that thrill of the hunt style thing to happen again. But again, there's probably a deeper meaning behind all of this, a deeper value behind what's driving Luvis at this point. We just have to wait and see him properly explain it. So yeah, that's been my thoughts on chapter 171. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.